Thanks for connecting to this virtual poster presentation and discussion with a recent AMCP Foundation Best Poster Awardee. I'm pleased to be joined today by Sun Choi and looking forward to getting to know her and her research a little better as we move forward. So the AMCP Foundation Best Poster Competition is hosted at the AMCP meetings, and we want to thank our sponsor, CVS Health, for their generous support of the competition. I'm your moderator for today, Jeff Heater, Director of Pharmacy at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Nebraska, and the AMCP-AMC Foundation representative on the Joint Research Committee. So the Joint Research Committee, or JRC, objective is to promote and encourage creation and dissemination of the relevant, credible research, as well as initiatives that advance patient care service and managed care pharmacy with the ultimate objective of improving healthcare for all. And we do that through three initiatives. The first being to develop and update a research agenda, which identifies and prioritizes evidentiary gaps within the managed care pharmacy arena. The second is to then disseminate that research agenda to stakeholders such as evidence generators, funding bodies, as well as others that advocate for the research initiatives which address those evidentiary gaps. And then finally, and part of the reason we're here today, is to cultivate that student and practitioner interest in research. So that research agenda is made up of four main concepts or pillars. The first one being real-world evidence, which is really used to inform managed care pharmacy decision-making. The second is based more around value-based models and value-based care within managed care pharmacy that ultimately address the total cost of care. The third is the impact of benefit design or utilization management techniques and strategies, and what are their outcomes or patient outcomes related to those. And then finally, what is the impact of direct patient care services that are actually provided by the managed care pharmacy space, and what are their impacts on patient outcomes. For more information, you can research or look more into the citation at the bottom of the screen. Like I mentioned, I'm excited to be joined today by Sun Choi, a recent graduate. And Sun, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you, Jeff, for kind introduction. My name is Sun Choi, and I was a graduate student at University of Illinois Chicago College of Pharmacy. And I presented this poster at the AMCP Annual 2024 in the past April. And the topic of my presentation is on healthcare costs and research utilization among patients with myasthenia gravis in the United States. And here's a little background of what myasthenia gravis is. Myasthenia gravis is a rare neuromuscular disorder, which causes skeletal muscle weakness and fatigue. And in the United States, the prevalence of myasthenia gravis was about 37 per 100,000 individuals in 2021. And because of the severity and comorbidity of the myasthenia gravis, also the high cost of myasthenia gravis treatments, the economic burden in patients are significant. And there are a few studies that investigate the healthcare costs and research utilization in the myasthenia gravis patients. However, the most recent publication actually used the data up to 2019, and other studies actually use the more outdated claims database. And also, studies didn't really have the suitable comparator group for comprehensive analysis. And to address this knowledge gap, we proposed this study objective, which was to estimate healthcare costs and research utilization associated with myasthenia gravis during the first year following diagnosis from a payer's perspective. And here's the method that we used. The study design was a retrospective cohort study, and we used the Meredith MarketScan commercial and Medicare claims database. Study period was January 2016 through December 2021. And for study cohort, we included the myasthenia gravis cohort, which was defined by 2 or more claims with the diagnosis of myasthenia gravis, which was defined by ICD-10 codes G70.00 through G70.02. And then also, we used the first diagnosis of myasthenia gravis as the index dates, and then the patient required to have 1 year baseline and then 1 year follow-up continuous enrollment period. And to select the comparator group, we look at the patient who did not have any myasthenia gravis diagnosis during the study period, and then we gave them a random index dates based on the myasthenia gravis cohort. And then we exact match them by 10:1 ratio, by age group, geographic locations, plant types, index year, Charleston's comorbidity index scores, and myasthenia gravis related comorbidities. For primary and secondary outcomes, we measure the 1-year total healthcare costs impacted by myasthenia gravis diagnosis. This includes the paid amount for claims from inpatient, outpatient, and pharmacy settings. And then also, we measure the 1-year healthcare research utilization impacted by myasthenia gravis diagnosis as a secondary outcome, which include the number of outpatient visits, hospital admission, emergency department visits, and length of hospital stay. And to analyze this data, we use the descriptive statistics for the demographic and clinical characteristics of myasthenia gravis cohorts and control cohorts. And also we use chi-square tests for categorical variables and 2-sample t-tests for continuous variables. And for the healthcare costs and healthcare research utilization outcomes, we also use the descriptive statistics. And then we also use what's called difference in difference from multivariate linear regression model to adjust the imbalance characteristics that was not matched after the exact matching. And then also we did the sensitivity analysis, excluding the patient with outliers. And here's the patient characteristic tables. If you look at the tables on the left, majority of the patient belong to age group 45 through 64 years old, which is about 55% of the patients. And then there were a little more female patient than male patients, 60 versus 40%. And then 80% of the patients had commercial insurance and 20% of the patient had Medicare. And for Charleston's comorbidity index scores, majority of patients had 0 to 1 score. And also 44% patient had hypertension and hyperlipidemia, which was a part of the myasthenia-related comorbidities, and also GERD and hypothyroidism. And then if you look at the table on the right, I'll actually listed the comorbidities that's included in the Charleston Comorbidity Index. However, because we matched the patients by the score, not the individual comorbidities within the comorbidity index score, there's some comorbidities that were not exactly matched. For example, like cerebral vascular disease, paralysis, diabetes, renal disease, rheumatic disease, cancer and metastatic cancer, AIDS and HIV. These are the characteristics that were significantly different between myasthenia gravis cohort and control cohort. So that was the comorbidities that were used to build the multi-linear regression model. And here's the primary outcome, which is the total healthcare costs impacted by the myasthenia gravis diagnosis. So if you look at the figure on the left, you represent the results for commercial population. And if you look at the before the index for myasthenia gravis cohort, it's about $24,000. And then after the index date, which is after the myasthenia gravis diagnosis, it increased to $49,000, which is very significant. And then if you look at the control cohort, there's not much difference. The mean of difference was $79. And same thing for the commercial population. Before the index date, the myasthenia gravis cohort had about $13,000, and then increased to $19,000 after the diagnosis. And then same thing for the control cohort, there was small mean of difference. And then after adjust the baseline characteristics by the multivariate multi-regression model, we got the difference in difference, which is basically the total healthcare cost impacted by myasthenia gravis diagnosis, which was $26,000 for the commercial population, and then $5,000 for Medicare population. And here's the secondary outcome result. If you look at the commercial population, number of outpatient visits, number of inpatient admission, length of hospital stay, and number of emergency department visit increased after the myasthenia gravis diagnosis. And especially the number of outpatient visits increased significantly, which is 3.5 days. And also for Medicare population, all of the healthcare research utilization increased, and then all of them were significant. And here's the results for the sensitivity analysis. we exclude the patient with the post-index top 1% total healthcare costs to make sure that these results are not impacted by the outliers, patient with the very high total healthcare costs. And after excluding this patient, we still had the significant increased costs before and after the myasthenia gravis diagnosis. And the difference in different estimate was $21,000 for commercial population, and then about $35,000 for Medicare population, which are both significant. So in conclusion, this study provides the estimated total healthcare costs and healthcare research utilization after initial myasthenia gravis diagnosis from US payers perspective. And individual diagnosis with myasthenia gravis shows significantly higher healthcare costs and healthcare research utilization compared to patient without myasthenia gravis diagnosis. In commercial population, it was associated with $26,000 during the initial year post-diagnosis. And it was associated with $5,000 in Medicare population. And for the future studies, we would like to investigate the long-term healthcare costs and healthcare research utilization associated with myasthenia gravis, since this study only investigates the 1 year post diagnosis cost. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation. And here's my contact information.
Great. Thanks, Son. That was a great overview of your research, especially in a field of, in a disease state that is pretty rare, as you had as indicated. And so anytime that we can start to get some information just around implications of this disease state, obviously is very helpful, especially in the different types of healthcare that's provided, whether it's the commercial population or Medicare. So thanks for that overview and the research that you did here. So kind of thinking through the 4 pillars that we talked about as we look at our research agenda as part of the JRC and AMCP, where does your research fit and why?
My research fit into the first pillar, which is the real-world evidence to inform managed care pharmacy decision-making, because this study was based on the claims database, which captures the real-world prescription drugs and also healthcare research utilization.
Great. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Definitely looking at research that's out there and the information that's available to you to look back at how that can happen and impact any decision making. So I completely on board with that. Absolutely. So, let's, if you don't mind, we'll take a few minutes and just kind of take a step back, if you will. A lot of hard work, I'm sure long hours, as well as just sifting through claims databases and stuff as part of your research. So we can kind of take a step back from that a little bit and kind of go to the very beginning. What was intriguing about this particular research that's kind of made you think, yes, this is the type of research I want to do?
Yes, so even before I chose to do myasthenia gravis disease, I was always interested in looking at the rare diseases because these are the diseases that have the least amount of evidence. But then I started realizing there are more and more interest in rare diseases because of the recent drug development in the rare disease area. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, to your point, what treatments and things do we have available for some of these rare conditions, and what's the impact of that, right, on patient care?
Right.
Absolutely. A lot goes into just kind of what you focus on with the research. Also thinking about, really no research, whether you call it a project or a situation, is the same. What did you learn through this process based on the research that you did?
Yes, actually, this was my very first study using the claims database. Before I did this study, I was more into like economic modeling, which didn't really require looking at the claims database. But because of this research, I had to learn how to code. And also, we had a lot of discussion with the advisors who was actually involved in the ICER modeling for the myasthenia gravis. And I got a lot of insight from him and then learned a lot from him too. And also, I realized that because there's not that much evidence, this kind of study can be very valuable and also address the impact of the next drug coming to the market on this myasthenia gravis population. So I really enjoyed the process of learning, looking at the rare disease. It's definitely different from the looking at the chronic disease because there's really not that much evidence. Yeah, I really enjoyed the process.
Awesome. Yeah, that first time getting into claims research can be somewhat daunting, and uh, as we've as we kind of learned through this, it's another language too when you look at coding. So, great learning opportunity, I'm sure, and sounds like you learned a lot through that, which is great. So, one of our objectives or focuses of the JRC is really looking at, how do we cultivate and support the next generation of researchers, whether that's students or those that have been practicing for some time and want to get more into research. Based on your experience and, what you've done as part of your research, what advice would you give to others that are looking to get into research?
Yes, for students, I think it'd be important to find the area of research that they're very interested in, instead of just going to like professor and then just get any project that they have on hand. I mean, which is a good approach. I took that approach when I was a student too, but I think there's some therapeutic area, lots of like interesting therapeutic areas, and if they can go from there, I think they'll be more motivated to do research and learn more too.
Great information for the next generation, if you will. And thank you again for taking the time to be with us today to go over your research. And again, congratulations on winning the best poster competition here recently at the AMCP meeting. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So I want to thank everyone for listening today. And for more information on the AMCP Foundation Best Poster Competition, the Joint Research Committee, as well as poster presentation resources, please visit the AMCP Foundation website. A lot of that information is on the screen here in front of you and a great source of information. Finally, I do want to make sure everyone is aware there is a new AMCP Collaborate community, and it is now live. The managed care research community is designed to facilitate the exchange of ideas and information, as well as encourage in-depth discussions related to managed care research. So join today and engage in innovative and thought-provoking research discussions. Finally, I want to thank CVS Health again for their funding and support of the Best Poster competition. And Sun, thank you again for being with us today. It was great getting to know you and your research. And everyone, have a great day.